On the morning of July 31st, 2025, the leasing office at Westwood Apartments opened like normal. Maleah Bess arrived on time and began her day. She sat at her usual spot, greeting visitors and handling rental paperwork. The day started quietly, with no sign that anything was wrong. Around mid-morning, her husband, Ron Christopher Allen, entered the building. He was not a staff member, and he didn't live there. He came inside without warning. He carried a handgun. Witnesses said he walked in fast, past the front counter, and went directly toward Maleah. Multiple gunshots were heard. People nearby ran for safety. A few residents called 911. Some saw Ron inside through the office window. He did not leave after the shooting. Instead, he stayed in the building and locked the door behind him. The leasing office, once a normal place of business, had turned into a crime scene. Police arrived quickly. Officers found the front door shut and the suspect still inside. They set up a perimeter and began speaking to him from outside. It became a short standoff. No one else was hurt. After some time, Ron came out on his own and surrendered without a fight. Inside the office, police found Maleah on the floor. She had been shot more than once. She was not moving. Investigators recovered the weapon and began collecting evidence. The room was left in disarray. Papers scattered, blood on the floor, and signs that no one had time to react. The apartment complex was blocked off with yellow tape. People watched from nearby buildings. Some were neighbors. Others were workers. They stood silently, trying to understand what had just happened. The front office, where tenants normally want to ask questions or pay rent, was now closed off for investigation. Ron Christopher Allen was taken to jail. He was charged with murder and later denied bond. The area slowly cleared, but the apartment office remained shut for the rest of the day. For everyone who lived there, the normal routine had ended. The crime had left a mark that would not be forgotten. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Where are you tuning in from? What are your thoughts as this story unfolds? Your voice matters. These are real people, real tragedies, and real lessons we can't ignore. Share this video with someone you care about. It could make all the difference. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, your home for spine-chilling cases, haunting before mysteries, and deep dives into the world of crime. From jaw-dropping real-life events to groundbreaking forensic discoveries, we're here to uncover the truth behind the most gripping investigations. Step inside, examine the evidence, and lose yourself in the shadows of true crime. Maleah Bess and Ron Christopher Allen were husband and wife, but their relationship was not peaceful. The age gap between them was wide. Maleah was only 24 and Ron was 52. At first, some people thought their relationship was private and quiet, but things slowly began to change behind closed doors. Over time, people close to Maleah noticed differences in how she acted. She stopped smiling as much and didn't go out like she used to. Her friend said she seemed worried more often. She didn't always say what was wrong, but those around her felt something wasn't right. Eventually, Maleah moved out of a home she shared with Ron. This was a big step. She left because she felt something was off. She tried to separate herself from the situation. Her friend said she started to feel better, but she was still looking over her shoulder. Ron didn't fully stay away. After the move, he continued showing up at places where she was. He visited her home without notice. He came to her workplace more than once. Sometimes he stayed outside. Other times, he tried to speak to her directly. She didn't always let him in, but he didn't stop coming around. Even though they weren't living together anymore, he was not completely out of her life. People who cared about Maleah said they saw the signs, but didn't think it would turn deadly. They hoped he would eventually leave her alone. That hope didn't last long. Maleah was still trying to live her life. She went to work. She stayed in touch with friends. She wanted to be free from stress. But Ron continued showing up when she didn't expect him. His presence made her nervous, but she didn't always say exactly how she felt. The relationship that started with a bond ended in control and fear. Maleah tried to create distance, but Ron kept returning. By the time people realized how serious it was, the situation had already turned dangerous. Her efforts to break away were not enough to keep him from finding her. Before the shooting, Signs of trouble had already appeared. Friends noticed Maleah had changed. She didn't laugh the same way. She became more quiet, more careful. People who knew her well said she started avoiding certain places. Her mood was not the same as before. Some of her friends spoke to her directly. They said she told them she had been uncomfortable in her marriage. She didn't give every detail, but she made it clear that something felt wrong. She said she didn't feel safe and that she was thinking about moving on for good. After she left the home she shared with Ron, she began to tell others about moments that made her afraid. One time, she said he raised his voice and refused to leave her alone. Another time, she said he showed up at her new place without being invited. She was not sure what he would do next. People around Maleah started to get concerned. They warned her to be careful. One friend even offered to stay with her. They believed she needed time and space away from Ron. She agreed, but didn't always follow through with cutting all contact. There were still messages and unannounced visits. At least one person told Maleah to report the situation. They said she should talk to someone in law enforcement. It's unclear if she ever did. What is clear is that Ron continued showing up where she worked, and she didn't always tell people when it happened. Others around her noticed he was not letting go easily. Some co-workers had seen him hanging around outside the office. He had not caused problems in public, but his presence was being felt. It was starting to become a routine, and that routine made people uneasy. Despite the fear, Maleah kept trying to move forward. She wanted to believe that things would calm down, but the warnings were real and they kept coming. People around her hoped she would stay safe, but safety was never guaranteed. After the shooting, the apartment complex was quiet. The leasing office was taped off, and no one was allowed near it. People stood at a distance, watching in silence. Some were crying. Others were still in shock, trying to understand what had happened. Police officers stayed at the scene for hours. They collected evidence, took photos, and marked items on the floor. The gun used in the crime was recovered. Officers spoke to witnesses and wrote down everything they could. The building was turned into a full investigation zone. Later that day, the suspect, Ron Christopher Allen, was officially charged with murder. He was taken to jail and held without bond. That meant he could not leave the jail while waiting for court. The news of his arrest was shared across local stations and websites. Friends of Maleah began to post messages online. They shared photos of her smiling and remembered how kind she was. Some said they had tried to protect her. Others said they would never forget what happened. Her name began to spread across social media. A few days after her death, flowers and candles were placed outside the office door where she had worked. People brought cards, balloons, and signs. It became a small memorial. Residents stopped to pay their respects. Some left notes, thanking her for being a helpful person. The apartment management team released a short message. They said they were heartbroken and would support the staff and community during the hard time. The leasing office remained closed. Business was paused as everyone took time to recover from what had happened. News outlets covered the story for several days. Reporters stood outside the complex, giving updates about the case. They shared Maleah's picture and told her story. Across the city, more people became aware of what took place. It was no longer just a local tragedy. It was a citywide headline. After his arrest, Ron Christopher Allen was booked into jail. He was given no chance to leave before trial. Court officials listed the charge as first-degree murder. The process moved quickly because of how serious the case was. Lawyers began preparing for what was expected to be a long legal fight. In court, Ron sat silently during his first appearance. The judge read the charge and confirmed his rights. There were no smiles, no emotion, just silence. The courtroom was filled with reporters, friends of Maleah, and others who had come to hear what would happen next. Prosecutors told the court they had strong evidence. They said Ron walked into the leasing office and shot Maleah in front of witnesses. Surveillance footage, police body cam video, and witness statements were all part of the case. The evidence was labeled as clear and direct. Ron's defense team said they needed time to gather their side of the story. They did not speak much during the early hearings. No one from his family came forward to speak publicly. His legal team gave no interviews. They requested privacy and time to review the case materials. Court documents show that the shooting happened in just a few seconds. There was no warning, no fight, no argument at the scene. The paperwork described how Maleah had been working at her desk before the shots were fired. She did not have a chance to react. The judge agreed the case was too serious for release. Ron was told he would stay in jail until trial. The next hearing was scheduled, and both sides were ordered to return with updates. News reporters shared every step of the legal process with the public. Each court date brought new faces. Some came to support Maleah's memory. Others came to follow the legal steps. Inside the courtroom, the facts were being laid out one by one. The case was still moving, but the truth was already written in the files. After her death, people began sharing how Maleah had touched their lives. Stories came from coworkers, friends, and even former residents. They said she was respectful, hardworking, and always willing to help. Her name became a symbol of someone who cared about others, even when no one was watching. A candlelight vigil was held outside the apartment complex. Neighbors stood with candles in their hands, remembering the young woman who had worked just steps away. Some brought posters with her photo. Others played soft music. Everyone stood together in silence as the lights flickered in her honor. Schools and local groups started using her story as a reminder to speak up about threats and suspicious behavior. Flyers were printed with safety tips. Some groups held meetings about how to protect workers in small offices. Her case was being used as a lesson across the city. Maleah's family stayed quiet for some time, but later they released a message through a local pastor. They thanked the community for the love and support. They asked people to remember Maleah for the good she did, not the way she died. Their message was shared on news platforms and social media pages. A few months later, a small scholarship fund was created in her name. It was designed to help young women studying real estate or property management. The fund started with just a few donations, but it slowly grew as more people learned her story. Her name was being connected with helping others succeed. The apartment company added new safety rules. They installed security glass at the front desk and updated emergency buttons. Staff members were trained again on how to handle dangerous situations. These changes were made quietly but were clear signs that her death had changed the way things were done. Even as time passed, her name was still mentioned. Her story didn't disappear. People continued to share photos of her smiling face. Her memory remained strong in the community. Though she was no longer alive, the impact she made continued through those who knew and loved her. The death of Maleah Bess left a deep mark on the city. Her story was told again and again across news stations, blogs, and social media. Many people who had never met her still felt the weight of what happened. Her name became connected to a bigger conversation about safety and accountability. Leaders in the local housing industry began looking into new ways to protect staff. They organized group meetings to talk about how workers could be made safer in their daily roles. New security tools were added in offices that had none before. These steps were seen as a direct result of what happened at the leasing office that day. People in nearby communities also began to reflect. Churches, schools, and community centers brought up the case during their events. Messages of awareness, protection, and paying attention to warning signs were added into everyday conversations. Maleah's death turned into a lesson that could not be ignored. Lawmakers reviewed workplace safety policies. While no new law was made right away, the conversation had started. Emails were sent, statements were drafted, and meetings were held. Some officials promised to explore better rules to guard people working in public-facing jobs. It was a slow process, but the case kept their focus. Online, thousands of people shared her picture along with short messages of love and sorrow. Her story reached far beyond the city where it happened. From one post to the next, the message was clear. She did not deserve what happened. Each share helped keep her memory alive. In private, families began talking more about personal safety. People started checking on loved ones more often. Parents gave extra reminders to their children about being aware of their surroundings. Even without knowing it, Maleah's story had changed how people thought and acted. As the case moved forward in court, the focus stayed steady. Justice was important, but her memory was even bigger. Her name continued to be spoken with respect. The legacy of Maleah Bess became more than a headline. It became a reason for change in real life. After months of waiting, the court case finally reached its most important stage. The courtroom was quiet as people listened to every word. The person responsible for Maleah Bess's death stood before the judge, ready to hear the final decision. The evidence was strong. Video footage, witness accounts, and forensic reports were shown in detail. The jury had listened to days of testimony. The facts were clear, and the timeline left little space for doubt. The judge reminded everyone that the law had been followed carefully. The sentencing came with a strong message. The court handed down a punishment meant to reflect the seriousness of the crime. There was no delay in the process. The judgment was firm and based on the law. Justice, in the eyes of the court, had been served. During the hearing, Maleah's family sat quietly, watching every moment. They had waited a long time for this part to come. Their presence was a sign of strength. Even though nothing could undo the pain, the court's final words brought a small piece of closure. The defense team spoke too, but their arguments could not change the outcome. The judge explained the sentence clearly, outlining how the punishment matched the actions that had taken place. No part of the process was rushed or skipped. After the hearing, reporters gathered outside. News outlets quickly shared the outcome across the city. People reacted strongly to the decision. Some said it was fair. Others believed more could still be done to stop this kind of violence in the future. With the case now closed, the focus shifted back to Maleah's memory. Her story had moved through courtrooms, newsrooms, and communities. But at the heart of it all was a young woman who never came home. The legal system had made its ruling, but her absence remained. After the court gave its final judgment, the city slowly returned to normal life. But in the homes, schools, and streets that once knew Maleah Bess, things were not the same. Her name had been added to a long list of young people lost too soon. Friends and neighbors began to organize events in her memory. They held candlelight walks, shared photos, and wore T-shirts with her face on them. Her name echoed through speeches and songs, reminding everyone of what had been taken away. Local leaders started talking about safety and awareness. Meetings were held where people shared their fears and ideas. Some spoke about the role of social media. Others focused on how to better protect young women in the city. At Maleah's former school, teachers placed a framed photo of her near the entrance. Students were quiet when they walked by. A few classmates even wrote letters and poems to say goodbye. The school counselor made time to help students talk about their feelings. Her family stayed strong. They created a foundation in her name to help other families who had gone through similar pain. The foundation's goal was to offer support, provide education, and speak out against violence. It was a way to turn loss into action. As weeks turned into months, the media moved on to other stories. But in the neighborhoods where Maleah grew up, her story never faded. It remained on walls, in hearts, and in conversations. Her picture became a symbol of both warning and remembrance. Even though Maleah Bess was gone, her story continued to be told. It was shared not just as a crime, but as a reminder. Her name was now part of a wider call for change, and her memory stayed alive in the lives she had touched. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly. And trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard.